Welcome, everybody. Hi, what a great audience we've got here. This is going to be fun because they asked me to do this panel as a no-brainer because the guy sitting to my left has done some really cool stuff. There's some things I have found out he cannot talk about because sometimes his client is the U.S. government, but it's pretty cool. So Robert Ballard, welcome.
Pleasure.
Ocean Exploration Trust. We're going to learn some cool stuff. But I got to ask, my first thought, just be honest, okay? There's just a little group here. Do you ever, his ship is called the Nautilus. You ever get on the Nautilus, like full moon, late at night, and just go, I'm the king of the world? You ever do that?
Maybe.
Okay. Is Kate Winslet there?
No, I make sure that the camera person's not there, right?
Anybody who didn't see the movie Titanic is like, what the hell is he talking about? Right. Go see it. It's a good movie. Yeah. Did you see it? Did you like it?
I did. It was a great movie. And Jim's a great guy, and can't wait to see his next round of films. But he showed me, I knew what the old lady looked like down there. He showed me the beautiful young lady she was when she sailed from England so accurately. It was a fantastic.
Did you, I would imagine you consulted with James Cameron, obviously the director and writer of Titanic, and producer of what it looked like down below. Was it accurate?
Yes, very.
The beginning when they're going over the sort of...
Well, he went down and filmed the real one. So
that was the real... So I guess it was accurate.
Yeah. It was pretty accurate.
It was the other Titanic.
Right. But our news project, I think they're going to let me show some slides. Oh, there we go. Not the next one. I guess I click. So I wanted to tell an interesting story, and if you guys could put this up on the big screen, that'd be great. Let me go to the next. Here's what I wanted to tell a little story today that I think people might find interesting because it's probably one of the most unreported stories around.
Napoleon captain.
No, we remember this one. We remember that in 1803, President Jefferson cut a deal with Napoleon. Napoleon had a sort of a bad day with England, and he owed him a bunch of money. And Napoleon wanted to pay off his war debt. So he said to Jefferson, I'll sell the Louisiana Purchase, and in so doing, I'm going to let you double the size of the United States. Now, Congress at that time was totally opposed to it. Sound anything different? Because they said, well, why would we want to get the Louisiana Purchase? Because the private industry at that time was into cotton. It was into rum trades. It was into all sorts of things. But it was not really seeing the Louisiana Purchase as having economic value to our country. But fortunately, Jefferson was a great leader, and he said, okay, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And then he had Lewis and Clark go out in 1804 to 1806. He wanted to find out what he bought. And we all know the story that it was a pretty good deal. So he spent, the Lewis and Clark expedition spent almost 3 years going all the way from St. Louis all the way out to the coast of Oregon. In fact, their final camp, the weather was so lousy they call it Cape Disappointment. But we all know what came after the Lewis and Clark expedition was the tremendous occupation of that country, beautiful things like Yellowstone Park, but also all of the things that came with planting of corn, planting of wheat, oil, gas, wind, mining. So this was clearly not a bad deal for the United States. Well, let's flash forward now to 1983. And for the price of a pen, this is what was probably why it went unnoticed. He picked up a pen, President Reagan, and he signed the Law of the Sea Convention and did exactly what Napoleon did. He redoubled the size of America. But unfortunately, unlike Jefferson, he did not mount a modern-day version of the Lewis and Clark expedition to see what we now own. So we took it over by claiming 200 miles out from our land masses, but he did not follow up with the Lewis and Clark modern version of it. And it wasn't until 18 years later that both President Clinton and President Bush each had major studies done. The first one was under Clinton's administration when they had a president's report on ocean exploration, and then that was followed just a year later when Bush commissioned the Ocean Commission, which I served on both of those. And in that, we said, look, we need to have an Office of Ocean Exploration. The nation at that time did not have an Office of Ocean Exploration.
Which is so, first off, Bush, he should have moderated this. He's going to be here. But which is so weird because we know so much about Mars.
There's Buzz. Buzz and I will probably come to blows before this meeting's over.
Buzz Aldrin.
But I can run fast.
And Buzz Aldrin, tough guy too, so I better
Yeah.
watch out. So what you're saying is we know more about space
Well,
than we do about the coast,
it's
10 miles off the coast of California.
It's a pretty big thing, outer space. But it wasn't until 2009. So we had the commissions. We created the Office of Ocean Exploration. Its initial starting budget was $4 million. That was its initial operating FY 2009 was
$4 million.
$4 million.
It was about Buzz's spacesuit probably cost about that much back in the.
Yeah, certainly.
Maybe more than that, right?
So we brought online 2 ships that are America's 2 ships of ocean exploration, and we began exploring. Now, the beauty of our mission, similar to NASA's mission, but little restriction on it, is to go where no one has gone before on planet Earth. And that's been really the privilege that I've been given as an American citizen, to be able to spend my years, and my ship, the Nautilus, sailed yesterday. I'll be joining it, and it sailed for 6 months. It'll be out going where no one has gone before on planet Earth. And it's an amazing place. It's not, to give you a sense of scale, I want to give you a sort of an idea of what we know and are familiar to all of you. So we all know Mount Everest. So there it is. Mount Everest is up in the center. I've positioned Mount Everest at scale next to Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea on the Big Island, to show you what Mount Everest would look like if you tucked it up next to the largest mountain on planet Earth.
Which is Mauna Loa.
Which Mauna
Just
Loa.
most of it's underwater.
Correct. Well, you can see. If you
So
look
the white part is Everest.
at scale. Now, if you look at the lower right, we all have as screensavers, most of us. We have El Capitan in Yosemite. That's El Capitan, and the image above it, to scale, up against the wall off Grand Cayman. That is a 20,000-foot drop. 20,000 feet, boom. And to the left, I've taken the Grand Canyon and put it in a relatively small deep-sea trench, certainly not the Marianas Trench, and the Grand Canyon becomes a ditch by comparison. So just to give you a sense of what's down there, people have this image that it's a big flat, they call it the floor of the ocean. No. It's extremely complex terrain. The largest mountain ranges on Earth are underwater. There's tens of thousands of active volcanoes. This is an area that you can't even imagine what can be there unless you go
all
there.
this wildlife that's down there. I mean, what's the strangest creature that you've found or seen?
Steve, what was the strangest creature? Steve knows exactly what I found. Was the
You're
giant...
not saying Steve is. No.
Yeah, Steve Wynn. That's Steve right there.
No, I know. I was kidding.
It was a giant tube worms. I mean, Steve and I are very good. He loves hydrothermal vents, because people say,
Well, who doesn't?
No, but I remember we were having dinner. Remember, with President Clinton, and he was talking about stuff and talked about the Titanic. And he's told President Clinton, he says, it's not the Titanic. It was the origin of life on it, finding the giant tube worms in the hydrothermal vents of Galapagos, where we found the origin of life on our planet, that is now guiding us in our space exploration, heading to Europa, heading to Enceladus, because
The original heat source.
this is where life began on our planet. So not only that, we have found massive amounts of copper, lead, silver, zinc, and gold. If you look at that black smoker in the center one, the entire thing is commercial grade ore. And the amazing things about black smokers is they occur where the oceanic plate is separating, which is along the central axis of the mid-ocean ridge, which runs for a distance of 70,000 kilometers. And all along that are black smokers creating ore bodies that are now, people are starting to look at mining them. But to give you a sense of scale, all of the mid-ocean floor, which is 72% of our planet, was created at that spot. So it had black smokers on 72% of the Earth's surface. So think about the scale of the mineral deposits is staggering. And also, we're now finding on some of our major seamounts rare earths. And rare earths are very critical for a lot of purposes.
A lot of things, yeah.
Your cell phones, your computers.
All the Teslas parked out front.
And 90% of the rare earths is controlled by China. So this is a very critical...
Would you support mining? that?
Properly done, of course. It's like anything we did in our own country. I think that there's areas where you can mine and areas where you don't mine. And so you have to project, where's this nation going to be in really a fairly short period of time? And it's going to be, how does the tapestry of the ocean, particularly in the 50% of our country that's underwater, it's going to have major debates. Upper right-hand corner, the creation of national marine sanctuaries is really critical. We need sanctuaries to protect species, as sort of like mangroves provide the area for small fish to live and then go out where commercial fishermen can catch them. But we need to be looking at the management of our 50%. And it'll be similar to how we manage the land part.
What's the difference between the Atlantic and Pacific?
Pacific,
besides the name.
Oh, the Pacific's a third of the Earth. And because the Pacific crust is extremely heavy. And so the rock that comes out of the earth in its natural form has very high concentrations of iron and magnesium silicates. It's called basalt, it's called gabbro, but it's heavy. And if you look at an oceanic, if you took a cubic foot of a continent, the typical rock, granite. Okay, granite is, if you look at the periodic table, it's sodium, aluminum, calcium silicates, feldspar, quartz, stuff like that. If you took a cubic foot of continental crust and you put it on a waterbed, it's going to sink into the waterbed. But if you took a cubic foot of ocean floor, which is much heavier, it sinks deeper into the waterbed. And that's why continents are up and oceans are down. And so as an ocean grows, starting with something like the Red Sea, which is a relatively young ocean, or the area in the Sea of Cortez, which is a fairly young ocean, it's not terribly heavy. But as oceans grow in size, they get heavier and heavier, and they get deeper and deeper. And because the Pacific plate is a third of the Earth, it's heavy, and so the deepest areas of our planet are in the Pacific.
It's true that all the oceans, you'll forgive me, Bob, I'm not smart as you are, that all the oceans combined could fit into the Pacific Ocean?
Yeah, I mean, they're
Is that the scale of the Pacific?
Not quite.
And it seems like, and for my amateur...
you know the first place, 28% is land. Okay, so then if it's a third of the Earth, no, it's not quite adding up the Indian Ocean and the...
It's close.
It's close.
That big.
It's significant.
And then whenever I watch your videos and some of the stuff that you've done in National Geographic, it looks to me like the Atlantic and the Pacific, very different bottoms. Like in terms of sea life, the Pacific seems more vibrant.
Well, you have to look at where the center of biodiversity on the planet is, and it bullseyes in the Western Pacific.
Because of the heat.
Just the nature of the whole planet. The whole planet, the center of diversity, both on land and the sea, is in the Western Pacific, so you have greater diversity.
So just to go back, how far down was the Titanic? What was that floor?
Average depth, 13.
What was that floor like? Is that just, was that dead,
it was
dead floor?
It was near a canyon, so it was on what's called the lower continental margin. It's 13,000 feet. But the thing I want to stress, which is really important, 95% of the human race lives on less than 5% of Earth. 95% of the human race lives on less than 5% of the Earth because...
You've been to Manhattan.
or real dense areas like Bangladesh. Yeah. So if you look at that, then you look at the next thing, that 95% of the living space on our planet, so we've got 95% of humans in less than 5%. 95% of the space that supports life on our planet is in international waters and the high seas and unexplored. So it's large, that is where most of the real estate is.
Now, when you say largely unexplored, there's tens of thousands or millions or whatever of ships every day crossing the seas.
On very narrow trade routes.
Are they running
mostly northern hemisphere.
And they're just running the same routes all the time?
They're running the same routes, and they're mostly in the northern hemisphere, and most of the oceans in the southern hemisphere.
But are they collecting data that with not on purpose, with everything that all the science and technology we have now, our cars
know
where we are, our phones know where we are?
No, I mean, they'll collect some, tell you what the weather's like. They'll tell you a few things on their water intake, but they're not going to tell you the detailed topography of the ocean over which they pass. No, they don't have that.
It seems like a wasted opportunity.
It is. So here's where we are. Here's where Buzz and I are going to duke it out. Okay, so let's now look at where we are right now. This was the FY16 budget for NASA, and it got a little bump up. The new one, the trillion that came out, they got a little good bump up, and Congressman Culberson is really determined to get that 2020 launch to Europa. But now look at NOAA's budget that was last year, and that's the relative relationship in funding, about 1,000th. So yes, it's a big outer space, but I'm not against funding NASA. I just want the same 18 billion. That's all.
And
Nothing
what would
personal.
you do with it?
What are the my planet.
What are the priorities?
Map my planet. I want to map Mars. If you look at Mars, the cost of mapping Mars was about $4 billion when you run all the numbers. That would be about what it'd take to map the rest, all of Earth that's unmapped. Same amount of money, well, $4 billion. So I just think it's a good investment. We're finding lots of things in that territory. I also don't, here again, he gets his time on Friday, right, Buzz? I'm not sure that there's an exit strategy of the human race. First place, I think there's 6,500 languages spoken on this planet. If you look at who else,
exit strategy.
I don't think that
we have to leave.
That we have to leave Mars, go to Mars. I mean, Superman had a choice. He could have gone to Mars. He went to the Earth. My sense is that there's no exit strategy. We cannot tell the next generation, mess it up and just get out of Dodge. What makes you think you're not going to go mess it up again? You need to learn how to live in harmony with this planet. So I just say, where would you rather be? I think I'd rather be on the 95% of the planet that humans aren't living on. If we're going to terraform.
Is that your house in the bottom right? Is that where you live now?
Not bad. Yeah.
Did you picture a day, honestly, where we have huge colonies of people living on the ocean floor?
Not on the ocean floor. That's it. No. You'll live out on the ocean. You'll live in the near areas.
How deep could we? I mean, with pressurization,
you can live anywhere.
How deep could we live? I mean, honestly, we had to go down.
You want to encapsulate yourself. You can live anywhere you want to live. I do not see humans going and living inside the ocean. Maybe penal colonies or something like that. But But I certainly see us moving out onto the ocean. Absolutely.
And which jail are you going to?
Particularly the farmers of the future. Look at right now. Here's another stat. 90% of all the large fish in the sea, have been hunted down. We've eliminated 90.
How do we know that, though?
Because you can run the numbers. We know what we're catching.
If you say it's unmapped and unknown.
No. These are the fish that were in the shallow area that we eat. We don't tend to eat the ones in great depth. So we have a pretty good idea of the population of species in what I call the Cousteau layer, the first sunlit layer.
Is that a technical term, the Cousteau
yes, I call
layer?
it. The Cousteau layer is where it's really pretty there. But so what we need to do as a society is we need to do what we did 11,000 years ago on land. 11,000 years ago on land, we domesticated goats and sheep. We began to cultivate a wheat. We are still hunter-gatherers in the ocean. We are catching the lions and the tigers and the bears of the ocean. We're eating top apex predators. Whereas on land, we eat something that takes photosynthesis, turns it into grass, turns it into protein. It's called a cow or a pig or a chicken. We need to begin moving away from hunter-gathering to farming. And these are some of the new creative ways. The one I love is one on the right.
So explain, what is the one on the left? What is that?
That is a fish farming. Those are mollusks.
Vertical.
In fact, right off here is the only, off this building, out between Catalina and San Pedro, is the first major aquaculture program that's in federal waters, and they're mostly doing mollusks. And the primary is mussels. It's called the Catalina Sea Farm. But one I really like is the one that's off Kona, and this is a really interesting thing. If you look off Kona, they took a fish called kampachi. When we go to a sushi restaurant, we call it hamachi. And when you eat hamachi, it's $17.50 a pound. Pig's $1.50 wholesale. And they took this apex reef fish and flipped it to a herbivore. They said, eat soybean or die. And guess what? It ate soybean. Okay. And they take these guys out into what would be sterile water. That water has virtually, the clearer water is, the less that's in it. You'll notice the water on the left is really turbid because it's cold water. Cold water has a high carrying capacity of nutrients. Hot water can't hold much. So they went out in hot water. There's pretty much nothing's going on. They put these cages down 90 feet so boats wouldn't run over them. And they let them cook, and they feed them soybean and bring them to harvest. And that's scalable to an amazing. And they're now moving away
from... Catalina Island Ferry may be buzzing right above that thing.
Well, this is off Kona.
That's off the one on the left.
So that's just a creative way of where they've gone from a hunter-gatherer to a farming and herding, and it's not about sustaining life in the sea, it's about vastly increasing its productivity. And that's where we're headed. So anyway, here's my job. Can we back up one?
Hit that red.
No, does that work? No, it's probably a pickle. There we go. So the question is, so what are you going to do about it? So this is probably the most important thing I'm doing. Because fortunately, I'm paid by the federal government. I'm not bitching, although I just want to get that billions or so that Buzz has got. Parity, not parity. I think it's critical that we educate and interest the next generation in learning about the planet in which we're living by taking them on our journeys of exploration and discovery as members of our core of exploration.
Well, let's do a little test real quick before you continue. So show of hands. How many people here took oceanography in college or high school?
Zip. Oh, there we got a few. There we go.
But it was an elective, right? I mean, I just took it because I thought it would be easy. It was very hard. Yeah.
So what we're doing,
so the point is, look at this. 95% of the planet is water. 6 people in here have taken a class about the planet.
Therein lies the rub. But here's more important.
We're doomed.
More importantly, when I first began this game of exploration, I did it physically. I got in a submarine. I spent 25 years in the United States Navy in deep submergence and going down doing all sorts of interesting things. Don't bring them up.
That's my job.
But I found myself spending most of my time in the elevator. When I made a 20,000-foot dive, it took me 6 hours each way. I spent about that much time on the bottom. So what we're doing now is we're building our own navies to carry our spirit. So it's all about spirit movement. We're now having out-of-body experiences in new end effectors, and in this case, as a deep-sea robot. The beauty of that, you put it down, it stays down for days and days and days and days. And then what we do is we beam it up to the ship, and then we put it on a satellite, because when we go where no one has gone before, we don't know what we're going to find. So we can't have the whole university out there. So we actually have built a command center where we can call you, and in our promise to our sponsors, if we make a discovery, no matter where, no matter when, no matter how deep, we will have the brightest mind in America at the spot of the discovery in 30 minutes by networking them in. So we built a command center, and we bring it in, and then we're using Internet 2 Level 3, which is 10 gigabits of bandwidth, and we're able to call them on the phone, look at your laptop, look at your cell phone, look at anything, and tell me if we should prosecute this discovery or if you know all about it. We call them doctors on call. Now, here's the interesting thing, is what I want to do is to leverage that investment. So I don't need money for that. We got a pretty good bump up, actually, in yesterday, so I'm pretty happy. So we're out there now exploring. I'm fine. What I want to do is leverage it, because I want to take advantage of this excitement by involving as many kids as I can. We can go to any classroom in the United States live. We can, but here's what this is probably the most important slide. Unlike Lewis and Clark's Corps of Discovery, which was comprised mostly of white men, there was only one woman, Sacagawea. I've mandated that our Corps of Discovery will be 55% women. There's one of them right there. Alice is the expedition leader, next month. I've mandated that women will be 55% of the Corps in positions of leadership and authority, and the Corps, and we could do a little better in this room, will reflect the faces of America. That every child needs to see their face in the Corps 20 years out to know. You don't have to do anything but show the kids that they will find their face. And so that's And
you take students out.
You bet. And I
starting
take them,
at what, 15 years old?
15.
You and I spoke about that?
15, yeah. And they become the role models and the mentors.
But some of your kids in this room, some people's kids, if you want, and
Go to oceanexplorationtrust.org. We have a program. I've mandated a teacher on every watch. A teacher on every watch. We work with Boys and Girls Clubs. We work with whoever wants this. We can go to any venue in this country. I want to scale this. I got National Geographic to build me a beautiful studio. Thank you, National Geographic. But we then bring them out. Here they are. Look at them. We're bringing them out and training them. At every watch, we have young people being trained, and then we put them in the hot seat. Those kids are now...
Is that on the Nautilus?
That's on the Nautilus. And I have to admit, that central picture is my daughter, Emily Rose, with a button nose, who started with me at 15. She's going on her... I'm going to cry.
Oh, that's nice.
Moving on.
I mean, it's not nice you're crying. I don't want you to cry. It's nice that you...
And she's in the hot seat. And she knows she's going to be in the hot seat. No one escapes the hot seat on my ship. And that's what it's all about. And my bottom line is, unfortunately, I can't convince the federal government to focus where we need to focus. Middle schools. The battle...
Why middle schools?
That's where kids form their passions. That's where their minds are wide open. As they said yesterday, the biggest conflict in education is puberty. So you have to get them before puberty. You have to get them before. But so what I'm trying to do is build, I was with my Disney folks today, we want to build a command center that takes your breath away, integrating our kids and our teachers into this command center so that we can reach out to the middle school children of our country and engage them in live exploration. You want to go to nautiluslive.org, May when? May 12th. May 12th, we'll turn on the big satellite, and we will start
from the ship,
and we will start engaging kids. And last year, we took and answered 60,000 questions from kids. And we had the team of experts to answer it 24/7, and that was only for 4 months. We're now going to 6 months, and thanks to Congress, if they pass they don't do a CR and we actually get a budget, we'll go to 8 months next year. And so we'll be able to reach millions and millions of kids. I need your help, if you want to help, to build some of the infrastructure for this middle school program, because I can't get...
That's not being funded.
They don't see that that's the battle. The battle is won or lost in middle school. That's where it's won or lost. So if you want to help me, there it is. There's Allison. Please do. So that's my pitch, and I got 2 minutes and 25 seconds.
Well, you got a lot of potentially willing people in this room as well. And before we wrap it up, I
just did. Now we can relax. So what do you want to ask?
In our remaining 2 minutes, Bob, yes. I've never sat more quiet. I really enjoyed that. I'm usually the one blabbing off. It is an amazing thing that you're doing. What do we hope to find? If you could just paint the perfect...
that's classic. I love
Simple?
that.
I should have asked a harder question.
I love that question, because when a kid asks me this question, I say, there's something you don't quite get. I don't know what I'm going to find. If I did, I would know. But I don't know.
No reason to explore.
So I'm going where no one has gone before on this planet, and I'm going to turn. When I found hydrothermal vents, it was not in my NSF grant. In fact, we had a bunch of people debating, no, throw it away. It's not in the grant. We can't look at it. When we found black smokers with all, no, it's not in the grant. We can't focus. I said, this is fundamental discovery of the origin of life. I know, but it's not in the grant. And so what I had to do was to create a program that through, the heck with that. We're going to go look for A and hope to God for B. And B is going to blow A away. But I can't tell you in advance. But I got to tell you, it's really cool, and it happens.
Some cool stuff down there, isn't there?
There's got to be.
I want to go.
No, just statistically, look. I've done 150 expeditions now. And if I look, and clearly hydrothermal vents, black smoke, those are fun. We've finally explained the origin of chemistry of the ocean. I mean, that was not bad to understand why the ocean had its chemistry. We didn't know the ocean was going inside the planet and out every 6 to 8 million years. The going down inside the earth, coming back out, full of goodies. We couldn't balance
And a little warmer.
we couldn't do our mass balance calculations. We could not explain the chemistry till we found the. So I'm just confident that we've only seen, they say, maybe 3% of the deep sea, and we got lucky.
Well,
What's the other 97? Something. So I'll call you when I find it, okay?
well, no, we'll watch it live.
Watch it live.
We're gonna watch
and
it
you
live.
can go
We'll do
on
it
Twitter and Facebook. We have social alerts, and when we're moving in, we'll let you know and turn it on.
Look at how good you are. There's 6 seconds left. Here's the thing.
Thank you.
Robert Ballard, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for coming, first of all. I did a medical research panel. It wasn't nearly as well attended as this one. I'm very excited to sit down with, obviously, a living legend, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And we saw each other not too long ago when Kareem celebrated his 70th birthday. So happy birthday again, Kareem.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
So we have a lot to talk about and not nearly enough time, so let's get right to it. Kareem, you've worn so many hats during the course of your career. We're going to get to your activism, writing, and philanthropy. But above all, you're considered by many to be the greatest basketball player of all time. Do you ever get sick of hearing that?
Because it has to do with the game that I love so much, I can't hear that too much. You know, I'm very proud that I kind of somehow worm my way into that conversation. Whether I am or am not the greatest ever, at least people wonder about that. And that's I'm pretty proud of that.
When you were growing up in New York, did you ever imagine that this would happen, that you would reach that pinnacle?
No, I didn't. I was always seen as being, I was too thin. You know, I was supposed to be like Wilt Chamberlain, you know, 300 pounds of man. You know, I never made it that far, you know. Shaquille did. Shaquille bettered that, you know. But I played the game pretty well, and I was very fortunate to learn the game from really great people, and that enabled me to play as well as I did.
You have so many highlights as you look back on your career, but when we were in the green room waiting to go on, I asked you if you had a snapshot of one moment in your basketball career, what would that be?
Oh, well, for me, that's very easy, especially for the fans here in Los Angeles, beating the Boston Celtics in 1985.
You said people always ask you about that, right?
Yeah, they do. I mean, especially here, because it's so much resonance. Katie, at that point, the Lakers were 0-8 against the Celtics in World Championship competition. Going back maybe to when the Lakers were in Minneapolis. It just went all the way back. And it was just a long period of frustration. And the very season before that, we gave a game away in Boston Garden. James Worthy and Jamal kind of crossed wires. The Celtics made a steal and were able to tie the game and win it in overtime. And we gave that game away. And we were very, very angry about that. So being able to come back the next year and beat them and win the final game in Game 6 in Boston Garden was incredible. It was a very special moment for the team, for the franchise, for all the folks here in Los Angeles, and for me personally. You know, I was MVP. I was able to lead my team at its most important time. So, yeah.
You're not a real smiley person, but you're smiling when you're telling that story.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. You know, you always feel good when, you know, you get you're the guy that rides in with the cavalry and saves everybody, and the pretty girls kiss you and all of that stuff.
You have written a new book. It is your 12th book, and you start this book by talking about when you got the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Obama. And I know that he brought up your NCAA, the banning of dunking during your time in college, and he said, when a sport changes its rules to make it harder just for you, you are really good. Well, it must have been very, very cool to get that Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Yeah, it was. Especially
With an incredible group of people, right?
Yeah,
Kareem?
that's the thing that got to me. So many people there that I admired and who had affected my life in many different ways. Robert De Niro or Ellen or Cecily Tyson. It's just back and forth. Had a story. We laughed about my history with Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks used to work at the hotel that we used to stay at in Oakland. I think he was still in school. He was still in college or something.
What did he do there?
He delivered a bag to my room. And he said, thank you, Kareem. You didn't stiff me. I tipped him. The airlines had lost my bag, and they finally returned it, and he brought it to my room. And he said,
That's so funny.
I didn't stiff him. He was in college. Thank God there was no lingering resentment.
Yeah. Which is probably good advice, over tip, right? Or always.
Don't over tip, but never under tip. Don't forget to tip.
Yeah. You have this new book coming out, and as I mentioned, and it's called Coach Wooden and Me, Our 50-Year Friendship on and Off the Court. And you start with the Presidential Medal of Freedom ceremony, and you remember that Coach Wooden had gotten that same Presidential Medal of Freedom 13 years earlier.
Yes.
Right? And I was going to read a passage that you wrote early on. You're so prolific. Where do you find all this time to write?
I get help. I do get help.
You do? You're a good writer, though.
Yeah, and I got a great guy that helps me with my research and.
But you write it yourself, right? Because I don't see anybody else's name on here.
No, but Raymond Opsfeld and I work together, and he's great. He teaches, and it's like working with one of your college professors. Well, he has been a college professor.
Well, let me read this passage. Coach was an old white Midwesterner with old-fashioned ideals. I was a quiet but cocky black kid from New York City who towered 18 inches over him. He was a devout Christian. I became a devout Muslim. He loved big band music of the swing era. I loved modern jazz. On paper, it's understandable that we would have a good working relationship as coach and player, but nothing on that same paper would even hint that we would have a close friendship that would endure a lifetime. So talk to me about your friendship with Coach Wooden, how it developed, what he taught you, and tell us a little bit about, that's a nice photo, by the way, why he was so universally admired.
Well, he was universally admired because he had so much patience with us. And he wanted us to be the best we could be. He wanted us to be the best husbands and fathers we could be. He wanted us to be the best citizens we could be. And he just used basketball as an analogy to teach us about life and about discipline and a whole lot of things that we thought we knew everything about when we got here. I laugh, because I just thought, hey, I'm ready. I should be going into the NBA, but I have to go to college. But I wanted to go to college. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college. But Coach Wooden really explained it to us how important it was, how important learning things were, the values that endure in families and successful teams. So any success that I have is he's got to take some of the credit for it.
Your friendship lasted his entire life, really, after you got to know him and used to go see him and sometimes just kind of sit quietly.
We were both baseball fans, so we talk about a number of things. He would go in Indianapolis to see the Indianapolis Clowns play. They had a first baseman named Meadowlark Lemon, who ended up playing up on the Globetrotters.
I loved him. But
Coach Wooden saw him play baseball. He played first base for the Indianapolis Clowns. And there was a guy that played on the New York team, the New York Black Giants, who also played for the New York Wrens basketball team. It was an all-black basketball team. And they would barnstorm in the winter. Coach Wooden would see him and hang out with him. And in the summers, he'd go see him play at the baseball stadium there in Indianapolis. So, Coach Wooden knew a whole lot about things that just astounded me. Some of it I didn't find out until very late in the time that I knew him. Like some of the stuff that he did for the civil rights movement is unbelievable for me. Coach Wooden was involved in getting the NAIA, the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletic Association, that tournament integrated. They invited his team in 1947 to come. He had a very good team that year. They wanted him to come. He said, yeah, sure. And then they told him all about it and said, oh, you have a black guy on your team, you can't bring him here. It's for whites only. Coach Wooden said, we played the whole season together. We're not going to stop that at this point. Thank you very much. We're not coming. And he hung the phone up on the guy, and the team didn't go. Next season, his team did better. And the NAIA tournament people called him again with the same conversation, and they got the same reply. And he got ready to hang the phone up, but they relented. And Coach's player ended up being the very first black American to play in that tournament. Now, I played for Coach Wooden right at the end of the civil rights movement. He never spoke to me about it. I didn't find out about it until shortly before he died, that he had done that and had been an advocate for black athletes, and he was a big fan of Jackie Robinson. These are all things that I found out in my relationship with him. Yeah.
I know that many of your books have been about African American history. Speaking of that, about Black Americans who have had a profound and sometimes overlooked impact on this country. In the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement, how do you feel about the state of race relations today?
It's disappointing to me to see some things moving backwards. I don't think things can go but so far backwards after President Obama, who did, I thought, such a great job. But I'm disappointed to see some of the old things start to try to rear their heads, that should be dead. So many of our children, I know my children, don't feel racial issues like my generation had to deal with them, or especially the generation before me. I was born in 1947, and it keeps getting better. I think each generation that our children are able to say, "Hey, we're all Americans. We come from very many different cultures around the world." Los Angeles County has they speak over 100 languages in our schools. I found this out. I know people in the LA Unified School District. They tell me some of these things. Over 100 languages. The melting pot of the world is incredibly large, and we can all come here and be Americans. It's an incredible system that we have.
And yet.
And we're moving backwards. So that's bothered me, and I hope that it's gone far enough, and we all stop and think a minute and keep it moving forward.
It seems far too often we hear about a young black man being killed by police under sometimes questionable circumstances. I was just reading yesterday about that 15-year-old boy in Dallas who was shot by a police officer when the car he was in was backing up. And initially, the police said it was reversing in an aggressive manner. That statement, by the way, was later retracted. But how do we stop these heartbreaking incidents from happening? Have there's been so much attention on these shootings, Kareem, as you well know. Do you see any solution or anything that's happening in departments, say, around the country that gives you hope? Or, every time you hear about a story like this, do you think, why isn't more being done to address this problem?
Well, I'm encouraged by a few things that I see in that the whole attempt to try to deal with these issues with the cameras, the body cam,
right,
and just the fact that we can talk about it now and know that it's a problem. For the longest time, people used to deny that it was a problem.
And then they have this thing called the cell phone with cameras on it, right?
Right.
Everything changed.
That changed a lot of things because people began to understand that it really was a problem. Black Americans weren't making these things up just to cover their own innate criminality. People believed that myth. That's a myth. People would actually believe that. But now we can see that it's just bias. All criminals deserve to be apprehended and prosecuted, no matter what color they are, no matter what the crime. All criminals should be apprehended and prosecuted. That said, we can't be biased in doing that, and we have to reach a point where the cops can be neutral with regard to the ethnicity or religion or whatever it is that they identify about an individual who may or may not have committed a crime. That should not be part of the formulation. Either there's probable cause or there isn't.
Lots of work being done with. Lots of work, Kareem, as you know, is being done with implicit bias, unconscious bias at police departments all over the country. So do you feel hopeful that retraining, and I mean, some of this is so deeply ingrained, right?
It's ingrained in the culture of our country. Some of it goes back to the Fugitive Slave Act, which was, I believe, 1850, where...
1851, I think. I'm kidding. I don't know.
No, yeah. No, I think you're right. Yeah. 1850,
I am. Well, that's
50 or 51. But whatever it was, people were told, American citizens were told that they should apprehend and hold escaped property, which actually were people fleeing, being kidnapped and worked to death in the South, so that they could make a profit on cotton. That was the premise, This is our property, and you guys got to help control these people because we can't control them, and they're, again, innately wild people because they come from Africa, and it was a real great propaganda job that enabled that system to last until people realized that these people were human beings, and thank heaven for President Lincoln, despite what Mr. Trump has to say.
Which brings me to my next topic. Actually, before we talk about President Trump, you campaigned for Hillary Clinton. Today, I think she was doing an interview, and she said, if it weren't for Jim Comey and Russian hacking, she would be the President of the United States. She also said sexism played a powerful role in the election. So, I'm sure, like most people in this country, the day after the election, you were trying to figure out what just happened. And why do you think she lost?
Oh, I don't. The why really isn't important. She lost. It really doesn't matter. I don't think that guys in masks did things to the machines, and that's why she lost. There wasn't any dishonest thing about it that was obvious. There is the scent of vodka and borscht in this election, but she had to overcome that, and Trump overcame it and was able to pull it off. The electoral college is a funny anachronism. You have to know how to play it, and he figured it out. You got to give him credit.
He's about 102 days in. How do you think he's doing as president?
Geez, it's real obvious disparity between what we're going through now and I thought the competence and honesty of President Obama. It's a dramatic difference.
You wrote a piece for the Washington Post about what it means to be Black during a Trump administration, and here's an excerpt. Injustices were easier to endure when there seemed to be a sustained path to improvement that the country supported. But now we have the what have you got to lose, non-policy that bulldozes the path to rubble. Specifically, how do you believe that path is being bulldozed, Kareem?
Just the way that they're trying to return tax dollars to the wealthiest 1% on the backs of people who need money for better educational opportunities. And our roads and airports and train infrastructure, bridges, tunnels, they need to be upheld. Everybody wants to save money, taking away from the things that benefit the middle class and give lower class people jobs. It's not a good formula, and I don't. Having someone who's a multimillionaire in office who doesn't care or even understand the workings of how people make it from the lower classes into the middle class or possibly into the upper class, he doesn't understand how that happens because he was smart enough to inherit $200 million when he was born. I didn't have I didn't have those kind of smarts, so I had to do it the hard way, and most of us have to do it that way.
Let's talk about when you converted to Islam nearly 50 years ago. What motivated you to do that, Kareem?
I had a very strong belief in monotheism, and I resented what I had learned about how the Catholic Church, I was raised Catholic, and the Catholic Church had a big hand in the slave trade. I resented that. But I had a strong belief in monotheism, so as a person of African descent, I wanted to practice monotheism in a way that was more compatible with where I was from, and that was Islam. I learned about Islam. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. That really prompted me to want to learn about Islam, and I found it to be something that made sense to me. And I converted when I was about 19 or 20 years old.
We've seen recently, really not all that recently, but hostility toward Muslims, not just in this country, but around the world. What can be done about that, and what do you think is the most misunderstood part of Islam?
I think the most misunderstood part about Islam is that they feel that we're taught to be violent. The Muslim community during the time of the Prophet was attacked, and they learned how to be vigilant, and that's in the Quran, to be vigilant, but to make peace with people and to keep up your end of all peace treaties. That's what the Quran tells us. That's what most Muslims used to try to do. And now there's some crazy people that say that they are Muslims and they are barbaric murderers. Some of the things that they've tried to put out there, these ISIS people, it's barbarity. They didn't learn that from the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. It's just, I always use the analogy, it's like saying that the Christian Knights of the Ku Klux Klan represent the teachings of Jesus. That's impossible. Those two are not compatible. This radical jihadism, or whatever they want to call it, that's not compatible with the teachings of Islam, and I hope people can get that. Thank you.
You've spoken out about this. You've written about it extensively. One of the complaints that I've heard in various circles is that there aren't enough moderate Muslims speaking out, not just in this country, but around the world, against this fundamentalist interpretation, if you will, of the Quran. Do you wish that more people would speak out against that as a way of really explaining what Islam truly is?
Well, I don't think that voices of moderation are heard in the places where these things are happening. The places where these things are happening are ruled by really bad governance, strong men, kings, just really despotic, autocratic people who don't care about the the common people in their countries. So that's really what they are so angry about. And they're saying that it's because of the world order imposed by the United States. The United States isn't imposing that order on them. The rulers in their countries are. They're very often corrupt. If they have any mineral wealth, there's one group that controls it and controls all the wealth in the country and therefore sets the agenda for everything. And the common person is forgotten in those places. And you have really very wealthy elites that they don't, it's like a whole family of Trumps, you know, like thousands of them. It's bad stuff. You know, they have a very distorted view of what life is about.
What was your reaction when President Trump temporarily banned travel from at first 7 and later 6 predominantly Muslim countries?
I was very disappointed. I think he's trying to scapegoat one group. And I think it's caused some very bad things to start happening. Hate crimes have risen. We saw what happened in the Jewish cemetery in St. Louis, the mosque in Texas. An imam, I think, in New Jersey was murdered. You know, it's getting really more serious acts of violence directed against Muslims or against people who people think are Muslims. Some Sikh people, also people from India who wear turbans, some people think they're Muslims. They're not. They're getting attacked. It's getting crazy, and it doesn't make sense. And the leader of our country should try to really calm this whole atmosphere down and, you know, be rational. There are people we need to fear, but just anybody who looks different, fearing them is not, that's not going to get it.
Let me ask you about, I wish we had a lot more time. We only have like 4 minutes left, but let me ask you about your chronic myeloid leukemia. You were diagnosed in 2009. Mm-hmm. Today, you're still in remission, feeling good.
Very good, thank you.
And you were awarded a double helix medal in 2011 for your work in raising awareness for cancer research. You've been very helpful to stand up to cancers, and we appreciate that so much, Kareem.
Absolutely.
So how...
Thank you.
How did that diagnosis change you? Your priorities, your perspective?
I think it really helped me understand that how precious my time is. You know, when you realize, Raymond and I talked about this, he said the angel of death was on vacation in China, going to all the beaches, and now he's driving up and down Wilshire Boulevard in a cab looking for you. Things start to, you know, your perspective changes, you know. All of a sudden, hey, you might run up on the end of your days, and you want to make sure that you do the right things for all the people and all the causes that are important to you. You know, so it's really helped me get a lot more done.
You are so outspoken about a variety of issues, as I mentioned, in writing and speeches and interviews. Do you ever regret sort of putting yourself out there in such a way? I know you have 2 million Twitter followers. I don't even want to read those comments, Kareem. That scares me to death, even the idea of that. But I'm sure you get a fair amount of backlash.
I get hate mail.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me.
But no,
hate mail comes in the form of like tweets now. You don't really get anything, right?
No, but that's actually it's easier for them with tweet. They don't have to. Thinking is very hard for these people, and you limit the number of characters. It's easier on them. You know.
Do you ever engage with them?
No.
Never.
No. Sometimes you think maybe you need to. Maybe I should carry a pistol or something like that, but you can't do that. I really took a lot of heart and inspiration from Mr. Lewis, Mr. John Lewis. I remember watching on the news the time when he led those people across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and I wept. I was like 14 or 15 years old. I was crying because I just, and the man he's not bitter, he's not angry, and I've heard him speak, and he said, if you don't put your life on the line, you're not committed to nonviolence and progress. If you can't put your life on the line, you're not committed. And it just it makes me smile and makes me realize that you only have so much time, and you can't worry about how you leave here. You got to leave here doing the right thing.
That's such a great way to end our conversation, but I have a few more questions real quickly. I wanted to ask you, first of all, you turned 70. You're so skinny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what up with that? Do you have to watch what you eat? Apparently not.
I've always been skinny.
I know that.
Right?
But I mean, how for someone who's spent so much of his life in top physical shape, how has it felt to age if you're Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
I feel that I've done pretty good at it.
You're building a swimming pool.
Yeah, so I can swim every day.
Yeah. Is that something you do regularly, swim?
Yeah, it's a family thing.
Kareem moved to Orange County, and he's building a swimming pool. I asked him if he saw the Real Housewives there. He said no.
No, I don't watch that. But,
Not even at the grocery store?
No. My grandmother was from a part, my family's from the West Indies. My grandmother's from Trinidad, part of Trinidad called Grand Riviere. There's no plumbing out there. She swam in the river to bathe or in the ocean. So I remember when I was a kid, the lifeguards would be looking, and so swimming has always been something, a big deal.
What else do you do to stay in shape?
Some yoga, jump rope and stuff, just enough to try to keep the pounds off and stay healthy and cherish these days. I'm on borrowed time now, so I'm hoping I run up a huge debt here.
Jim Gray, my friend Jim Gray is here somewhere, and I said, Jim, think of a really good sports question for Kareem, because I'm not super sporty. But so this was his question. You came along with Bill Russell, Bill Walton, where big men really mattered. But what do you think about the current stars like Steph Curry and LeBron, smaller men? It's become a smaller man's game. And the time when giants roam the earth is kind of over. Now, I don't really understand that question, but it sounded good. and I thought I don't know, it's very poetic, and he just came up with it like that. So what do you think of that, Kareem?
He's talking about what they call small ball. And it means that the three-point shot has changed the game, no question. That wonderful year of 1985, when we beat the Celtics for the first time, from the very first game of the season to the last game of the playoffs, we made 90-odd three-point shots. Okay, and in the 2015 season, when Golden State won, between the first game of the season and the last game of the playoffs, they made 1,077 three-point shots.
Wow.
Game has changed. Different game. So, putting a premium on a shot like that means that if you have long-distance sharpshooters, they'll be able to score more efficiently because that extra point really changes it. If you can defend those guys and dominate under the glass and not let them get any second shots, you can still dominate the game. So there will always be space on the court for very tall guys that can do that. But there might be fewer of them, but they'll never be like totally gone. They won't be able to get rid of us. That's what I'm saying. You know.
Well, I love talking to you, Kareem. This was really a privilege for me. And by the way, if you all want to hear our conversation again, this is going to be on our podcast. I have a podcast, yes, shameless plug, called Katie Couric, very original. And we're going to be using this conversation today to air later in May. If you want to tell your friends that you enjoyed this so much, they need to listen to it on our podcast. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Thank you.